Today on Locked On Canadiens, Juraj Slafkovsky's dominance in the preliminary round has sent ripples through the rest of the bracket and has some real consequences for who all of these teams will play in the quarterfinal.
You are Locked On Canadiens, your daily podcast on the Montreal Canadiens, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello, everyone, and welcome into another episode of Locked On Canadiens. Thank you for making us your first listen of the day, for subscribing wherever you get your podcast, doing that supports us here on the show and ensures you don't miss an episode, and for making us here at Locked On the #1 sports podcast network. We love saying that here. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Use your profit boost on an NBA future and get entered for your chance to win a trip to the NBA Finals. Play your game with FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. My name is Ian Boisvert, also known as that Maybe It's Ian, and I'm joined as I always am by Laura Saba, also known as the Active Stick. Laura, the preliminary round is over. Juraj Slafkovsky was just flat out the best Slovakian hockey player in the preliminary round, and they're going to be leaning on him hard for a medal that honestly is starting to seem more and more likely. How are we feeling after this weekend of just really incredible hockey?
I think things couldn't have shaken out better for the Slovaks or the Canadian team, I think, after the preliminary round. There's a lot, obviously, there's a lot of stuff going on, but I think Finland and Sweden, maybe particularly Finland, aren't as happy as they could be with what's like the consequences, right? And then there's a lot of teams that obviously got overwhelmed by the big powerhouses. But I think Slovakia overall didn't just outperform expectations. They really brought themselves to the forefront of the conversation.
Yeah, look, we're going to get started there. We're going to talk about Slavkovsky. We're going to talk about Slovakia. We're going to talk about Canada. They cruised to a win over France. That was never really in question, but they did enough to also be the #1 seed heading into the playoff round. So we'll talk about that. And there's a lot of chatter about one Nick Suzuki. And I think we all need to put into perspective what his role on this team is, because I don't think his role on Team Canada is the same as his role on the Montreal Canadiens. And I think people have gotten that very confused. But let's start with Slavkovsky with Slovakia. That was a bright and early start. I believe their last two games were 6 a.m. Eastern starts. I was up for both of them. I think the second day I had two games going, or the first day I had two games going at 6 a.m. There was a lot of hockey to be watched this weekend. And look, Slavkovsky just continued to be his dominant self, especially in that final game against Sweden. What's so fascinating about that final game against Sweden is that they lose. They lose that game, but they lose it by just enough to win the group on like the third tiebreaker. So what happens in that game? Slavkovsky scores early. He ties the game at 1 on a one-timer just at the end of a power play. An absolute missile that he fires off the far post. There's something about the Olympics that just turns this guy into the best possible version of himself. And if he can ever find a way to bottle that and use that in the NHL on a daily basis, we've seen really good glimpses of it. Don't get me wrong. But what we're watching for Slovakia is different. It is, I am the best player on this team, and I'm going to be the only reason why my team does anything of consequence in this tournament. He doesn't need to be that for the Canadiens. But what if he was?
I think he will, though.
I think he will too. He's still 21 years old.
Imagine the Montreal Canadiens make the Stanley Cup final. Yes. Maybe even before that, right? But I think this is the thing. There's a cliche that goes around when there's the Olympics, when there's the playoffs. They say good players or great players know how to elevate their games even more in the playoffs. I think Slavkovsky kind of, first of all, there are other players on the Canadiens that kind of, might even be better than him or might have been better than him, right? So Sure. At the beginning, there was a feeling out period. You're playing very differently. And I think the big thing is that the Montreal Canadiens, the conversations they're having with Juraj Slafkovsky are things like, you do not have to carry this team on your back, right? Yeah. Whereas his only experience of the Olympics is doing just that.
Yeah.
Right?
It's phenomenal hockey that we're seeing
so
from
happy.
Slavkovsky. Now I want to talk about the end of that game because Sweden goes up by 3, and the tiebreaker is once you get, it's like, the number of points, right? And then if you go down a couple rungs, if none of those things are satisfied, it's goal differential. And it's specifically in group play, it is goal differential between the teams you are tied against. So Slovakia is down by 3 against Sweden. Slavkovsky, there's a power play late for Slovakia. Slavkovsky takes a shot from deep because he's just trying to get it on net because he notices there's 2 guys in Slovakian jerseys just standing around the front of the net, and Dalibor Dvorsky scores. Slovakia celebrated that moment like they had won the game, which I found interesting because at the time I didn't realize what was happening. And what was happening was they put themselves in a spot where they had beaten where if Finland won their game in regulation later that day, they would beat Sweden on that tiebreaker because it would be Slovakia, Sweden, and Finland's goal differential all against each other. And in that, Sweden actually ends up the worst of those 3 teams. So I found it was so fascinating because then Sweden is up by 2 goals at that point, and they have to pull their goalie because they have to get back in the goal differential conversation. I found all of that to be just unbelievable theater for Group B in this game. So I found that to be really interesting. But look, the grand scheme of things, like Slavkovsky is playing the best hockey we've ever seen him play, regardless of what stage he's on. And it really matters that he's doing this heading into the medal rounds. So with all that, Slovakia ends up winning Group B, creating chaos that we will talk about in the following segments about Canada, the rest of the bracket. But in doing so, they win the group. They get a bye into the quarterfinals, so they don't have to play in the qualifying games on Tuesday. Everyone gets the day off on Monday. But on Tuesday, all the qualifiers take place. Slovakia will get the winner of Germany and France, and winning that will send them to the semifinal. To me, and just having watched Germany and having watched France, I feel like Germany's probably the favorite to come out of that game. And then it's going to be close. I think it'll actually be a pretty tight game between Slovakia and Germany. But should Slovakia win, that means that Slavkovsky will play for a chance to medal in this tournament. Because if you get to the semifinal and you lose in the semifinal, you go to the bronze medal game. If you win the semifinal, you go to the final and you play in the gold medal game where you can win either medal. With that said, like, how much does it mean for, I guess, maybe Slovakia as a whole, but let's talk, we're the Canadian show. Like, talk about Slavkovsky. Like, what does this mean for him and the Canadians that he has a chance to win another Olympic gold medal, or Olympic medal, bronze medal, before turning 22?
I think he solidifies himself as being one of the best players of this core for a very long time. Mm-hmm. I think the thing that he's demonstrating right now, which we have seen in games, we have to be honest, we have seen him in many games this year. You know, we talked about what a difference this year has made, is that he has become not just a play driver, but a game driver, right? And I think it's really, really important for him to have this experience specifically. You know, we talked so much about last year, the series against Washington being playoff school, and they were uneducated and they were out of their depth and they didn't have experience. Well, this is an experience that Slavkovsky can draw back onto, and also just for him, right? Like, he's only 21 years old. Like, he's hopefully knocking on wood, nothing happens, and he has a very long career. Like, and Slovakia has a lot of legendary players, but he's going to be able to be counted amongst them at the end of his career.
Yeah. I read Mark Lazarus's piece in The Athletic about the state of Slovakian hockey, and it starts with a conversation with Jaroslav Halak at the end of the Sochi games. And he kind of gets choked up because he looked around him and he saw, Zdeno Chara's towards the end. I guess Hossa was still playing at that point, but probably close to the end. There wasn't a lot. And the line that gets me choked up, that also choked up Yarrow, was nobody's coming. Like there was nobody coming in the pipeline at that point in 2014. Well, he's here now. It's Juraj Slafkovsky. There needs to be more, right? If Slovakia wants to be a permanent fixture on this stage, there needs to be more coming. But the last thing I want to point out, and it's just, nerd stuff as I'm watching these games, Slovakia has been using Slavkovsky as a power play quarterback. He takes the puck. There's often times where, every faceoff that starts a power play, he starts on the left point. And they use him there because he's a dual threat. A lot of times he's been giving a lot of space to skate in front of him. And he'll grab that puck. And in the first game, he just wired a shot, right, that beat the Finnish goaltender in their first game. But then in the last game, or maybe it was I can't remember what game it was at this point, but he instead walks the puck up and he makes a pass instead. He's still taking that space. He still is a dual threat to shoot or pass. I'm sort of curious if the Canadiens find a way to use him in that capacity on the power play when he gets back to North America. But we'll leave that there. When we come back, we're taking a look at Canada. They cruised to a Group A win, obviously beating everybody in that group along the way. But they've also claimed the number 1 seed heading into the playoff rounds. And we'll get into that in just a minute here on Locked On Canadiens. Ever wanted to experience the NBA Finals live and in person? FanDuel is giving you the chance to turn that dream into reality with their NBA sweepstakes. Here's how it works. Use your profit boost on any NBA future, and you'll be automatically entered for a shot to win an NBA Finals trip for 2. That's right, flights, tickets, the whole experience. If you're already looking at the board and thinking about which team can make a deep run, this is the perfect time to lock that in. I love futures this time of year, whether it's picking a team to win the championship or grab a conference title. It's that extra layer of excitement to every game down the stretch. And now, not only can you pick cash, but it can also send your team to the finals. Visit FanDuel.com to get started. Use your profit boost on an NBA future and get entered for your chance to win a trip to the NBA Finals. Play your game with FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. All right, we are back. Thank you for making Locked On Canadiens your first listen of the day, and thank you for making Locked On the number 1 sports podcast network. If you haven't already, go check out our new Everyday Club. You'll get access to an ad-free audio feed for Locked On Canadiens, compatible with all the major podcasters, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, everything you listen on will probably be there. An invite to the members-only Locked On Everyday Club Discord server is also included, which has a group chat just for listeners of this show and Laura and I. So we're hanging out there. Come hang out. Go to lockedoncanadiens.supercast.com or check the link in the show notes to learn more. All right, Laura, since we learned in the last segment, goal differential matters in these short tournaments, especially because you only play 3 games. Odds are a lot of teams are going to be tied. It's going to come down to that goal differential. Canada got that assignment, and they walked out and they crushed France to the tune of 10-2. Tom Wilson hilariously found a way to get a Gordie Howe hat trick in an Olympic tournament game, which is just really funny.
It's the most Tom Wilson thing to ever happen.
Yeah, I go back and forth on it, right? Like, so he fights a French player because he takes a run at Nathan MacKinnon and he hits him up high. And I completely understand wanting to attack that man. I get it. Nathan MacKinnon is one of the reasons why your team has a shot to win gold. Anybody goes near him, that's what Tom Wilson is there for, right? He ultimately, neither Wilson nor the French player received any supplemental discipline. Sometimes they can be suspended, but it's not automatic. I think they recognized that wasn't much of a fight. In fact, Wilson just kind of got thrown to the ice really quickly.
He got his ass beat. We can say that.
I guess it didn't, to me, it didn't develop to a point where like I could make that call. I love that, like, people were like, oh, Wilson would have gotten the better of him. I don't know. That other guy measured bigger. He was taller and heavier than Wilson. What I found funny about that was I think McDavid completely lost that face-off on purpose. I think he completely, because he saw, like, he's got Wilson on the ice. It's a face-off in the offensive zone. I think Wilson told him, don't win this draw. Let them win it, so I have pretext to go behind the net and deal with their defenseman who hit Nathan MacKinnon, which, again, I don't have a problem with. I really don't. Like, if you're going to have Tom Wilson, that's kind of what he's there for. Right?
That's why you brought him.
Yeah, that's why you brought him. Like, you can't be like, oh, man, we got to use this thing we have. Like, that's why he's here. Anyway, I don't want to belabor the Tom Wilson point. But with all of that said, I think Canada understood that they're going to be tied with the US in wins. They're both going to be 3-0. What's going to be the differentiator here is goal differential. Canada comes into that game. I believe they were +9 going into that game. They come out of it +17 because they were a +8 in that game. The US did not try to do the same thing. And for that reason, the quarterfinal, I should say the play-in round and the quarterfinal shake out like this. Canada gets the winner of Czechia and Denmark on Wednesday. Meanwhile, as the 2 seed, the US gets the winner of Latvia and Sweden. So the US gets Sweden. Like that, I came into this game after getting the understanding of how Slovakia ended up winning Group B, immediately going, okay, the goal is simple. You score as many goals as you can on France.
Yeah.
You go scorched earth. I do not care. I'm sorry, Alexander Texier, who had a phenomenal assist on Mark Stone's goal, not the way that he drew it up. You need to fill the net against France, and they did. So I think the US kind of went into their game going, we're not scoring 10. Like, we're not scoring 10 on Germany, who's a better team than France.
Yeah.
They
went in there like, let's look at the next round.
Right. Yeah. Exactly.
Yeah.
I think I wonder if the Americans just decided we're not going to do that, or if they genuinely didn't know. And considering they employ both Kachucks, I think it's possible they just genuinely didn't know.
And also Bill Guerin. They employ Bill Guerin. You can't forget that.
Yeah. I want to leave. There's a lot of Nick Suzuki chatter. I want to leave that for our final segment because I think there's a lot to be unpacked there.
There's
about
meat.
There is. There's a lot of substance there. For Canada, I will say, Binnington was concerning. We went from, hey, this is their guy, he looked great against Czechia, to 2 very bad goals given up against France. One where you could see why the St. Louis Blues were so bad, because Parayko turned the puck over and Binnington kicked a fat rebound right in front of Parayko, and he just didn't do anything with it. It's like, I understand why the Blues are terrible. Hey, who's in charge of picking this team again? Oh, the GM of the Blues. Got it. Oh, okay. Yeah, it's fine. It's cool. Whatever.
Everything's fine.
Yeah. It's easy. That is a straight non-dotted line from those guys to that general manager. But anyway.
What's really funny is John Cooper said after the game, he said that he wanted to see how they play in their own end. And I'm like, that's how they play in their own end, John Cooper. Now you know.
Yeah, I think they're fine in their own end generally.
It's just, I know. There were moments.
I haven't liked Parayko.
No,
I'll be honest. I think every defenseman better than him. I think Thomas Harley has really come into his own in this tournament. Yeah. He's been phenomenal. I didn't love in the second game. I didn't love Taze and Makar. I thought they were kind of a beat behind. But I thought they were much better against France. But generally, they should have been. If you were bad against France, we'd be having a different conversation today. But I think the story coming out of that one for Canada is just this Macklin Celebrini kid has ice in his veins. And
it's so fun to cheer for him. I'm so happy.
I'm so jealous of our buddy JD, who I'm sure is going to clip this for his own personal use later. But I'm so jealous he gets to watch this kid every night. That he's just a fantastic talent. Really funny moment in this game. He gets a penalty shot. He's hauled down. The difference is that in the IIHF, anybody on Canada could have taken that penalty shot. Nobody told Macklin Celebrini that because he's been just standing out at center ice. The referee skated to Cooper and said, okay, who do you want to put in? And he looked down the bench, and the bench was sort of like, what are you going to do here? And he looks out and he sees Celebrini. He's like, let the kid have it. They're all here to see him. And he made no mistake. 19-year-old is on a penalty shot in the Olympics. Yeah. And he looked like he was out for a Sunday skate. I am what's funny, watching World Juniors, I am never more pessimistic about Canada's chances in the future than watching World Juniors. And then you've got this guy. You have Macklin Celebrini at 19.
Yep.
Just out here trying to drag that generation along.
Yep.
I'm constantly just I'm wowed by all the little stuff in his game. His forecheck is phenomenal. He's relentless on the puck. I almost wonder why Wilson's even on that line. Macklin's doing the forechecking, bro. Like, what are you doing here?
In case somebody hits Nathan MacKinnon.
In case somebody hits Nathan MacKinnon, the first huge check of the Olympics was from Connor McDavid. And Marchand was like, hey, nice hit, Wilson. He's like, that wasn't me. Like, I'm genuinely like, I am blown away by Macklin Celebrini with every viewing. I'm so excited that at the very least, if he can't be on my NHL team, that we are going to have more Olympics to go from.
Yes.
What are your final thoughts on Canada?
Worlds.
What's
don't
that?
Forget Worlds. He has to go to Worlds.
Ain't watching Worlds, Laura. Like, I'm not watching World. You listening to this? Have you ever watched the World Championships before? No, you haven't. There's like, I bet someone's like, I've watched it. Cool. I'm glad for you. But like, also the Stanley Cup playoffs are on. Any final thoughts on Canada before we move into where Nick Suzuki is in his game?
An offensive embarrassment of riches, and we will get into that actually in our third segment, I think.
Yeah, let's get into that. We're gonna point out that Nick Suzuki is exactly where he should be, and we'll get into that in just a minute here on Locked On Canadiens. All right, welcome back. Nick Suzuki finds himself on the right wing. They reassembled that line. In the second game, they moved Wilson off of the top line and they put MacKinnon on the top line. I think it was honestly a way to get MacKinnon going. I thought that, at 5-on-5, you weren't seeing much of Nathan MacKinnon, which is not the best situation to be in. With that said, they move him back to that line the following game 3 of the preliminary round, and that line didn't score a ton. But I will say, like, I think a lot of the concerns about Nick Suzuki's production are being completely overblown. I think I don't know what people expected. Like, did people really think he was going to come to this team looking at the roster that was there and be a primary source of offense for Team Canada?
They thought he was going to be in the top 6. Like, honestly,
he is in the top 6.
No, I know what you mean. Honestly, when we talked about this, we thought that Nick Suzuki might not even have a shot of making this Olympic roster, right? Yeah. We talked about this so many times. We're like, there's too many good players on Canada. If Nick Suzuki doesn't make it, it's not really, it's not that big a deal because there's too many good players, good offensive players in Canada. I think the role that Nick Suzuki is being asked to play is not the role that Canadiens fans think he should have. And I think that's the difference. And I just want to point out that John Cooper has done this a lot longer than we have. We have done this for 0 minutes in the NHL. John Cooper has done this for 1 billion years.
I think, I completely agree with you. I think John Cooper understands the sorts of things that Nick Suzuki brings to a game.
Yes.
Nick Suzuki's goal when he's on the ice is to move the puck up the ice and to keep it in the offensive zone by staying above the puck.
Yeah.
And he does that effectively. Like, to have a player in that role who is going to score 90 points this year is a champagne problem, right?
It's a luxury.
So it's a luxury thing to have. I will say, Canada versus France, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 6 players had more chances controlled than Nick Suzuki. Sidney Crosby, Nathan MacKinnon, Macklin Celebrini, Connor McDavid, and Bo Horvat. Actually, it's only 5. 5 players had more chances controlled.
All of them are bums.
All of them. I will say, Bo Horvat in this tournament, I've really enjoyed him. He's looked really good. I was sort of like, he's going to be one of those guys that plays lower 6, and he does. He plays effectively the third or fourth line.
He's
and
so good.
He's so good. It doesn't. I would like to see them try to find more ways to get Bo Horvat involved because I really have enjoyed him. But like, I feel like people aren't watching these games with the idea that he has a role to play and that they're just like, oh, he's not scoring. He's not getting any assists. He's creating chances, right? They're just not going in. If anything, you'll say that like the positive regression here is that heading into the quarterfinal and the playoff and medal rounds, maybe that snaps back in the other direction, especially if at 5-on-5, he's playing with Nathan actual MacKinnon. I don't think that teams are going to be able to match that, right? Like, you're going from in the quarterfinal, you're probably playing either Denmark or Czechia, right? they might have the horses to be able to match the McDavid line. They're not going to be able to line match the other ones.
Yeah.
Like, I think that I hate to be this guy, except I've sort of loved being this guy lately. Watch the games. Like, watch Nick Suzuki. Watch the little things that he's doing to keep his team in positions to succeed. It's not always going to end with the red light turning on and his team scoring, but it's going to end with his team. I think this is something that Marty says. It's going, like, he wants the shift to end in a better place than it started.
Yeah.
Right? That is all any of these lines are trying to do. I really struggle with, like, the talk that I'm seeing about Nick Suzuki from people who frankly aren't watching the games at 10 o'clock in the morning on a weekday. Like, I have a hard time with it. Again, though, like, we thought he was going to be the third line center on this hockey team. And he's effectively playing that role as a winger next to Nathan MacKinnon. MacKinnon gets to play loose and free.
Yeah. And I think, like, people are saying he looks lost. No, this is the thing. He does not look lost.
No, I don't think
he
so.
Does not look like what you're used to seeing him as in the NHL. He does not look like a top line center of an NHL team because he is not doing that at the Olympics. When they chose him for the team, they said, and I can't remember if it was John Cooper or if it was Doug Armstrong, who cares? They said Nick Suzuki is a Swiss Army knife. We can put him anywhere and he's going to know what to do. And that is exactly what he's doing.
Yeah.
That is exactly what he's doing. They can put him anywhere. They can put him on the wing. They can put him on the power play. They can put him on the penalty kill. They can put him anywhere. And he's doing what is being asked of him in that specific moment. And he's doing it so well. Nick Suzuki can play. But the biggest thing, I think, the biggest asset that he has is Nick Suzuki can think hockey at the same elevated level as all these other guys that are on the team. Like, the best players in Canada are there, and he can think hockey at that same level. And that's why he's there. People are like, oh, he can't keep up with Nathan MacKinnon. Who can keep up with Nathan MacKinnon? Seriously. Connor
Keeping
McDavid?
up with the speed of a player is not what you need to be able to do. You need to be able to keep up with the brain of the player. And that's where I think Nick Suzuki can do that.
You need to be where he needs you to be when he's faster than you. And that's what Nick Suzuki is doing. He's not racing. He's not in a race with MacKinnon.
Nope. One thing, Suzuki on the forecheck has been very crafty, stealing pucks, getting in lanes. Like, he's being asked to do some stuff that we see at times in Montreal, but it's not his primary focus when he's in Montreal.
It's not his job here.
No, and I think, honestly, this experience of Nick Suzuki having to play this role is going to make this player more complete. He's already a very complete player, but having to do this at such a high level, I'm looking into the playoffs, right? They're up a couple goals. They're up a goal or two in the final minutes. He has to be that guy now, right? He has to be that guy who keeps his team above the puck, who makes smart decisions with it, who gets the puck into positive moments, positive spaces for his team. He's already very good at that. Doing it on this stage is a different animal. So I'm like the complete opposite of the crowd on this one. I think the one area I think I agree with his usage not being correct is he's not on the power play. And I'll give our buddy Andrew Berkshire of Game Over a little shout out here because he pointed out Nick Suzuki has more points on the power play this season than Horvat and Marner combined. And Marner, by the way, offensively has been pretty quiet. He's had some moments where pucks ended up finding their way into the net. I mean, the pass that he made to Stone in the first game,
that was incredible.
Unbelievable. Like, that's fine. I'm never going to take that away from that player. But in this last game, just 3 chances controlled. Nick Suzuki had 6. And Nick Suzuki doesn't play the power play, and those are all situations. So, I think people, I'm going to say it again, watch the games. Like, watch the player. Don't watch for the result. Don't watch, oh, the puck didn't go in the net. Oh, it's a stoppage. Oh, they just watch the player. Watch the little things he's doing. Watch how cerebral he is on the ice. I don't think people fully understand what role he's being given and how well he is executing it. I don't think that Cooper would keep him on that line if that wasn't the case.
I agree with you 100%. I think what I'm seeing is that sometimes people are not agreeing with his usage. But again, like, John Cooper has an embarrassment of riches and Nick Suzuki is a Swiss Army knife. Like, I wouldn't be surprised if it's a tighter game, if it's a tougher opponent, you see Nick Suzuki flying up and down the lineup, right?
Yeah.
I like a lot more line blending. I wouldn't be surprised, but I don't have a problem with his usage because of the depth that Canada has. Like, I also don't have a problem with his production because he's not being asked to score goals. There are so many goal scorers on this team. There's so many of them. Like, he's just there to make sure that they can do their jobs. And that's why they brought him. Like, this is the thing. It's like, I feel like people think that they brought him along to be Nathan MacKinnon. And I have to point out, Nathan MacKinnon is not being Nathan MacKinnon right now either. So
at 5-on-5, no, he's not.
he's struggling a little bit to kind of, I think Nathan MacKinnon is trying to do everything.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't think that's how it works.
Right. And I think the challenge with a player like him, like MacKinnon, coming on to a team like this is that at times he might not realize he doesn't have to do everything.
Yeah.
You know, like even with Hagel and Suzuki and not playing with, you know, Crosby and McDavid or whatever, this is one of the best lines he'll ever play on, you know? And I think Nate is trying to do a lot. I think Nick earlier in the tournament had been trying to defer too much to MacKinnon, and now he's sort of finding himself open for opportunities. He's sliding into open areas on the ice. There was one moment in the France game where he found himself in the one-timer position just below the half circle and kept sliding to keep his lane open, and Makar found him, and he was able to get a one-timer off that got stopped. I think just looking at the chances created and the chances controlled while Suzuki is on the ice, it would not surprise me if the playoff rounds and the medal rounds started and he was among the hotter players on this team.
Yeah.
With that said, even if he's not, his role is stay above the puck, make smart choices with it, and keep us moving, right? Canada's going to play with the lead a lot, which is great news for Nick Suzuki and the Montreal Canadiens in learning how to defend leads. Like, he's going to learn from these guys how to do it. Like, this is a big part of going to these things and learning from the best in your trade. He's going to learn how these guys did this. He's going to take this back and hopefully make the Canadiens better at holding leads, because it's going to be hard for them to be worse than they had been to start the season. Any final thoughts on Suzuki and Canada before we move on to our trivia?
I think Sidney Crosby needs to have like a heart-to-heart with Nate. I think this is a moment. This is a moment for Sidney Crosby to be a captain and a best friend at the same time, and I love it.
Yeah, it'll be interesting. I don't think they're going to touch that lineup, so it's really going to be a matter of making the best of the roles that you have and trying to just play a role on this team instead of trying to be this team. We'll see. I'm very excited. I'm happy we get the day off on Monday. There's no men's bracket hockey. I can sort of take a deep breath. It was a sprint of a weekend, and it's going to be a long week ahead with some really early starts.
Yes, I believe we still have women's hockey though.
Yes, I believe the semifinals are on Monday. So I'll definitely be checking those out, but there's a lot less stress involved in those for sure. All right, let's hit our trivia and head out of here. As a reminder, for February, we are doing Black History Month trivia for hockey. So last week's question was a follow the player path. It is New Jersey, Atlanta, Winnipeg, Chicago, Dallas, Chicago again, Ottawa, Philadelphia. Laura, who is this guy?
Johnny Oduya.
It is Stanley Cup champion Johnny Oduya. Quite honestly, one of my favorite hockey names to ever exist. Like, it's so punchy. It's so good. Johnny Oduya was an incredible hockey player. Really, really one of the more underrated defensemen of his time. Really enjoyed watching Johnny Oduya play. Yes, you had it right. And so did Free Square. Valkyrie NS had the answer as well. All right, today's question. This Montreal native scored 1 goal in his career against the Habs, an even strength goal for the Columbus Blue Jackets on October 12th, 2001. Who is this player? So this Montreal native scored 1 goal in his career against the Habs, an even strength goal for the Columbus Blue Jackets on October 12th, 2001. If you have the answer, put it in the comments down below this video. Let us know any way you know how, and we will give you a shout out on the next episode of the show. And that is going to do it for us today on this episode of Locked On Canadiens. Thank you for tuning in, for making us your first listen of the day, and for subscribing wherever you get your podcast doing that supports us here on the show. and ensures you don't miss an episode. Hey, if you're on YouTube, if you don't want to miss an episode, make sure you hit the little bell icon. It'll notify you every time we put up a new video. They're going out every night, Monday through Friday, so make sure you're tuned in. If you never miss an episode, the Everydayer Club is built for you. Get Locked On Canadiens ad-free, plus members-only Discord access and more. Head to lockedoncanadiens.supercast.com to join the club. For those of you on video, we send you to the first ever 24/7 National Locked On Podcast Network YouTube channel. On audio, make sure your second listen is NHL Game Night on Locked On NHL. You can find the show everywhere we're posting things at Locked On Canadiens, Blue Sky, Instagram, and TikTok primarily. LockedOnCanadiens@gmail.com is the best way to reach us via email. We love getting fan mail from you guys. We love hearing your opinions on the team. We love hearing just from you. We really appreciate it. It makes our day. Send us anything. We also do a mailbag every Friday, so send in those mailbag questions. We get to them, as many of them as we can on Friday, and whatever ones we can't, we turn into full segment mailbags, full segment topics on the show. So make sure you send them our way. You can find me at Maybe It's Ian. You can find Laura at The Active Stick. Thank you so much for tuning in, and we will see you guys tomorrow.